Everybody can relate to this one. Many of us in the POR community have been devastated by the breakup of one of our favorite bands. I mean, truly, it throws our world off balance, can leave us feeling adrift. I was personally gutted when the band in today's episode broke up. Not once, but twice. This breakup not only left me dejected, but for years it also altered the trajectory of one of my all-time favorite singers. This one's a good one. The juicy details of this rock and roll Peyton Place is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever been to the basement of the Alamo, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the red button so you always know when our interviews are coming out. Actually, I did a couple last week. We've got some good ones coming. Also, check us out on Patreon for even more content to help us keep it a daily channel. Like I said, everybody can relate to this. A band breaking up, your favorite band breaking up, can feel as catastrophic as a natural disaster. In the aftermath, millions of fans are left feeling lost and heartbroken. I mean, it almost seems like bands are destined to implode. Even the biggest ones don't escape this fate. More bands break up than stay together, that's for sure. I mean, the rock era has seen its share of legendary breakups across time. The Beatles, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, The Police, The Clash, The Smiths, my favorite. These iconic groups all eventually went their separate ways. The reasons behind a band split vary, depending on who you ask. There's always at least two sides to every story, if not three or four. And with a group of musicians, every version can be different. I was in my coming of age years when I heard the upsetting news that Steve Perry had left Journey. I think that was on MTV News, if I remember right. I was shattered. I loved Journey, and imagining them without Steve Perry was tough on my adolescent heart. I truly believed, I still believe, that Steve Perry is the greatest rock vocalist ever. I was confused. I couldn't understand how this could happen to one of my all-time favorite bands, like your first breakup, right? I wanted answers. I remember frantically searching for any information about Steve's departure. This was back before the internet. It wasn't until years later that I learned about everything going on behind the scenes that led to his inevitable permanent exit from the band. The lights are down in the city. Today's episode is about the fracture and then the comeback of Journey with their album Trial by Fire and their number one hit, When You Love a Woman. But you know what, let's go back to the beginning for just a second, set it up. Steve Perry joined Journey as their frontman in October of 1977, replacing Robert Fleischman, who also wrote the lyrics for their first charted hit, Wheel in the Sky. Ooh, the wheel in the sky keeps on turning. The original band members, they kind of eased Steve in as quietly as possible. We talked about this a few months ago. During Perry's first concert with Journey, the band didn't even mention his name on stage, didn't want to upset fans who might miss Fleischman. Although fans were skeptical of Steve Perry when he first joined the group, he was able to win fans over after the release of their first album, Infinity. It had a much different sound than hardcore Journey loyalists expected, of course. But eventually fans could not deny that Steve Perry was an incredible addition that would take the band to great new heights, and they grew to love his powerful vocals. Steve really became a pinup frontman and the principal lyricist for Journey at that point. There are always so many different perspectives to a breakup, like I said. So I'm going to give all sides exactly as they've said in their own words. I'm not taking sides here. Their perspectives. The way Steve tells the story, friction within the band steadily grew in the early 80s, making him feel isolated. Lead guitarist and de facto general Neil Schon was baffled by this perspective. To Neil and the rest of the band, Steve Perry was more than just a bandmate. He was a brother. In Neil's view, it was Steve who insisted on having his own bus when they were on tour, separate from the rest of the band, and the rest of the guys. And He often stayed in different hotels than they did. By 1984, Journey had split into two camps, Steve Perry on his own and the rest of the band on the other side together. This led to the making of Steve's solo debut record, Street Talk, featuring the number 3 pop smash and the number 1 rock track, Oh Sherry. Now, Street Talk sold over 2 million copies. It also yielded a second hit with the ballad Foolish Heart that went to number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it actually was a number 1 hit at Adult Contemporary. Now, it isn't widely known, but there's a rarely seen alternate holiday ending to the music video for Foolish Heart. That's why I bring this up. In a second camera shot, Steve Perry walks off the stage towards the camera where he's greeted by the rest of Journey. There's Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain, Steve Smith, and Ross Valerie.
Look who's here, huh? All right. Hey, listen, if you don't spill a little bit, it's not good luck, all right?
So carrying bottles of champagne, the band wishes their fans a happy holiday and a happy new year. And then Steve says, let's go cut a track. And they all walk off stage together.
Happy holiday. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, yeah. Let's go cut a track. Come on.
Yeah. Now, many believe that this was a hint for the fans that Perry was returning to write and perform with Journey. I mean, who wouldn't? Besides the making of a solo record, Steve stayed busy away from Journey. Of course, he was on the recording of We Are the World. I was really sad, disappointed when the new documentary on We Are the World didn't have Steve Perry in it. But when it was time for a new Journey album to be created, amidst his growing indifference, Steve attempted to reunite with the band. At least that was his intention. The recording of Raised on Radio with Steve at the helm as producer was a pretty rocky process. He often had to leave for the San Joaquin Valley to visit his ailing mother, who sadly passed away during the production of the album. This on and off recording schedule and Steve Perry's limited presence put a strain on the band, and eventually, Steve Perry was really exhausted from it all, leading Journey to take yet another break in 1987 after the Raised on Radio tour. I thought Raised on Radio was a great album. We can cover that one down the road. So with tensions between Perry, the band, and the band's manager Herbie Herbert at an all-time high following the tour's conclusion, Perry was unable or unwilling to remain actively involved, and he was tired of touring. It was affecting his health and his vocals. Herbert had booked 15 more shows for the tour, but Steve Perry declined, and he told Sean and Cain that he was done with Journey. So here's how Steve dropped the bomb to his bandmates. He called Jonathan Cain and Neil Schon together. They met in San Rafael, sitting on the edge of the marina, and he said, I can't do this anymore. I got to get out for a while. And Neil and Sean just said, well, what do you mean? That's exactly what I mean, is how he responded. I just don't want to be in the band anymore. I want to get out. I want to stop. As Steve remembers it, John said, well, just take some time off and we'll think about everything. Steve Perry said that he knew that he could not continue. He left the group because he was completely burned out at that point. He was so fried that he actually lost his love for music, for performing. So let's pause for a minute to talk about our sponsor. So I store a lot of content on my computer, such as artist interviews, music downloads, and photos, and I do exhausting searches. So I'm always concerned about file sharing, privacy, security, and wasting time. After a lot of research, I found out why my experience is often frustrating. My conclusion? You gotta ditch the default. I discovered a faster, safer, and smarter browser with Opera. It's a browser fully featured for the highest security and privacy for everything I do online. Opera offers a complete web experience with superior performance that you can't get from the pre-installed browsers you're forced to use. Opera is free, built-in VPN, ad blocker, and flow file sharing is a revelation for me. One of the great features of Opera, the tab islands. If you research multiple pages at once, before you know it, you have dozens, if not hundreds of tabs open. But with tab islands, you can easily group the tabs to stay organized. It's also got a built-in AI chatbot called Aria. With just a few clicks, you can highlight any text online and Aria will give you more information on the subject. Helps you when I'm reading more complex science articles. Plus, there's a built-in Messenger tab. It's even got this feature called Lucid Mode that automatically sharpens blurry videos. Say goodbye to 480p. Simply put, Opera is faster, smoother, and distraction-free. So it actually saves battery life, and most importantly, it saves me time. Check out opera by clicking on the link below and join me and millions of others who have switched to opera. It was clear to him that he had no choice but to just stop. But there was no easy way to stop. Leaving the mothership that he loved and put his heart and soul into building was like leaving his family. Steve Perry confided that he didn't tell anyone about his mental and emotional exhaustion. He just kept trying to plow through. Then all of a sudden, he was done and he just couldn't do it anymore. Just listening to music would bring back all those feelings of exhaustion and that sense of losing control. When Steve Perry came clean and told the band that he needed a break, they just couldn't believe their ears. And for all of us fans, there was no way to break the news gracefully. So he actually left without any public statement. That's the thing. Steve realized he had to be all right being on his own, without the love, the adoration, and the applause.
One love feeds the fire.
To decompress, Steve went back to his hometown of Hanford, California. He took long rides on his Harley Davidson, just winding down the nearby country roads. He loved hanging out with his old friends, trying to reconnect with his humble beginnings. You got to remember, he didn't talk to people for a whole day when he would perform because these songs were so challenging. When Steve Perry left Journey, there were only two members left at that point. There was Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain. Steve had actually fired founding bassist Ross Valerie and longtime drummer Steve Smith during the sessions for Raised on Radio, leaving Neil and Jonathan antsy without a group to play with. So they actually teamed up with baby singer John Waite to form Bad English, and suddenly they were back on the singles chart just a short time later. In fact, they were higher than ever. When I See You Smile went all the way to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to #1 in Canada in 1989, something Journey never had. They never had a #1 hit.
When I see you smile.
Meanwhile, Steve made a special guest appearance at the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, California with Bon Jovi to perform Sam Cooke's Bring It On Home to Me and the Four Tops' Reach Out. He also reunited with Journey for the Bill Graham tribute concert, Laughter, Love, and Music. That was on November 3rd, 1991 at Golden State Park in San Francisco. They played Faithfully and Light, sharing the bill with Jackson Browne, Santana, Los Lobos, John Fogerty, Joan Baez, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young.
I'm forever yours.
And at that time, as fans, we thought there was a chance. But other than those events, Steve Perry pretty much disappeared from the public eye for 7 years, taking his much-needed break from the music industry. Now, slowly, Steve began to regain his hunger to return to the bright lights and his forlorn fans. He released another solo album in 1994 for The Love of Strange Medicine. He even toured behind it, playing a bunch of Journey's greatest hits in his live set. I thought it was a great album. I really did. Let me know if you'd like to see us cover that solo record sometime in the future in the comments. A re-energized Steve Perry, though, that was exciting for Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain and longtime manager Herbie Herbert to see, because the stage was set for a triumphant Journey reunion in 1995. Steve Perry decided to rejoin Journey with one key condition: Herbie Herbert would no longer manage the band. Actually, in October of 1995, the band brought in Irving Azoff, one of the most influential power brokers in the business. Still, he took over management duties. With this change, Steve Smith and Ross Valerie reunited with Journey. And then there was even more good news. There would be a new Journey album with all new material. Remember when I read that? I think it was in Rolling Stone in the little brief notes. I was over the moon. The album was, of course, 1996's Trial by Fire, and its success defied the prevailing alt-rock trends of the era. It achieved top 5 status. When You Love a Woman, that peaked at #12 on the Billboard charts. It hit #1 on the AC charts for 4 weeks. It even earned a Grammy Award nomination in '97 for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or a Group. Album, it also spawned 3 top 40 mainstream rock tracks. There was Message of Love, that one went to #18, Can't Tame the Lion, that one reached #33, and If You Should Break Your Heart went to #38. It was exciting times. On November 9th, 1996, Trial by Fire reached its peak at number 3 on the Billboard 200 albums chart. And again, after music had completely changed with alternative and grunge and rap and hip hop, they'd all taken over. But Journey was back on top where they belong. It felt like the restoration of the glory days for Journey was an absolute certainty at this point. Until it wasn't. And Steve suffered a gnarly hiking accident while taking a 10-day sabbatical in Hawaii. A doctor recommended surgery for his injury after the examination uncovered that Steve also had a degenerative bone condition. The doctor's prognosis was that Steve could not perform without this surgery. But then Steve hesitated, and he chose not to undergo the necessary hip surgery to return to the stage. And this, of course, reignited old tensions and inevitably brought back memories of the singer's controversial bid for control over Journey's destiny in the late 80s, including his decision to fire Ross Valerie and Steve Smith. Steve wanted the band to indefinitely postpone their new tour, which was going to be extremely lucrative. The first time Steve Perry left Journey, he did so voluntarily, and the band grudgingly rolled with it. This time, however, the band was outraged. Rather than accommodate Steve's preferences again and turn down millions of dollars, the remaining members of Journey capitalized on their fan base's renewed enthusiasm and their demand for live shows for a tour, and they came up with a plan to carry on. They did the unthinkable. Carry on without Steve Perry front and center singing the Journey classics. The band told Steve Perry that they were going on without him. They even put out a press release telling the world that Steve Perry was no longer a part of Journey. The tables were definitely turned that day. Steve was the one that was flabbergasted. Neil Schon and his bandmates enlisted Steve O'Gary, whose voice closely resembled Perry's. A lot of people don't remember Steve O'Gary was working at The Gap, and then he was the singer of one of the biggest bands ever. The strategic move paid off in a big way as Journey enjoyed over a decade of successful tours and recordings with Steve O'Gary, and then they fired O'Gary in 2006 and found another Steve Perry understudy in Arnel Pineda, of course from the Philippines, and they've been selling out arenas and amphitheaters for more than 17 years, as big as they've ever been. Steve Perry said that he was shocked at the band's lack of compassion that led to his second exit from the group. He said, "I needed a hip replacement. The band was pushing me to schedule it." He said this in an interview with melodicrock.com. "I told them that major surgery isn't something a band decides. I agreed to get it done, but I needed more time. They were eager to hit the road, and they gave me an ultimatum to get the surgery now, or I was out of the band. I don't handle ultimatums well." And that's the end of his quote there. I can understand both perspectives. I really can.
Those were the best times.
While Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain have kept Journey rocking, Steve Perry on his part has maintained a very low profile, enjoying singing Don't Stop Believin' from the bleachers of his hometown San Francisco Giants baseball stadium, and making occasional guest appearances as a singer. Steve joined Journey on stage for their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2017. Very cool to see that. He elected not to perform with the band, deferring to Arnel to have that honor, but he did express his happiness that Journey received the much-deserved tribute. It was a long time coming. They should have been first ballot, let's be honest.
I've been gone a long time, I understand that, but I want you to know you've never not been in my heart.
Steve's released just one full solo album since his second and final departure from Journey. Traces came out in 2018. He later issued a different version of the same LP in 2020, followed by The Season, an album of Christmas standards in 2021. And then he recently sang a duet with Dolly Parton on her Rockstar album. He remade Open Arms, and also he recently sang his ass off, I might say, with Steve Lukather's son, Trey, his band The Effect, on a remake of the Journey song It Could Have Been You. Perry has dropped some hints recently that he might hit the road again. Let's pray that happens. Journey fans like me have been delusional. We've steadfastly held out hope for Steve Perry's return to Journey, despite everything telling us it would never happen. You know, when hell froze over in '94 and the Eagles reunited, we all held our collective breath that Journey could be next. I mean, Irving Azoff was managing both bands at one time. Then we got that big tease in '96 with the release of Trial by Fire and all that chatter online about a big tour when the internet was first going. When Steve finally did get his hip replacement surgery in '98, I foolishly thought that was another sign that Journey would return with Steve Perry at the helm. But once again, nothing. With Arnel Pineda handling vocals and Neil Sean's leadership, Journey is thriving. They're still putting out an amazing live concert. Is it possible that Steve Perry and Neil Sean and Journey could play just one show together? Could they play a residency at the Sphere? Ding, 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 ding. Honestly, it's close to 30 years later, and I've finally come to grips with reality. And I've accepted that there will be no more Steve Perry with Journey. And you know what? I'm at peace with it. But you can always dream. Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about Journey and Steve Perry. What are your memories of the reunion album Trial by Fire? What did you think of the big comeback? Do you think they'll ever get back together again where they do just one song? I mean, the Sphere, that would be amazing. Have you heard Steve Perry's new song with The Effect? I think Journey's amazing. I've seen him in concert, 25 times since Steve Perry left, and they're still incredible. Great band, great songs, will live forever. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.